Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to picture a house. From the outside, the paint looks fresh, the lawn is perfectly mowed, the
Hmm.
windows are clean, it looks like the model home in a nice neighborhood. But inside the walls, deep behind the drywall where you can't see it, there is a slow, smoldering electrical fire.
Oh, wow.
It's not big enough to trigger the smoke alarms yet, and you can't see the flames, but it is scorching the framing, melting the insulation, and just weakening the structural beams day by day.
That is a terrifying image.
Yeah.
Just the idea of something, destroying the foundation while everything looks totally fine on the surface.
It is terrifying.
Ah.
But that is effectively the biological state of the average person living in the modern world right now.
Yeah.
We obsess over the exterior stuff, calories, macros, looking good in a t-shirt, getting our steps in. But deep down, at a cellular level, there is a smoldering fire.
Right.
And the crazy part is we aren't just ignoring it. We are literally pouring fuel on it 3 times a day.
And the fuel isn't sugar. It's not carbs. It's not even the calories themselves. It's something most people don't even look for on a label because they don't realize it's a lever for their entire biology.
Exactly. Today, we are diving into the invisible metric. We are talking about the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. And I have to be honest, when I started reading through this stack of research for this deep dive, I thought, okay, fish oil, I know this. Eat more salmon. I've heard this since the 90s. But the data here it's just shocking. It's not just about heart health. It's about everything.
It really is. It's one of those things that once you see it, once you understand the biochemistry, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You walk into a grocery store and you just see the imbalance everywhere.
You see it lining the shelves.
You see the inflammation lining the shelves. It's in everything.
Let's hit the listeners with the core set immediately because this is the anchor for the whole conversation. This is the what before we get to the why.
Okay. So if we look at the data from the NIH and other major health organizations regarding industrialized nations, so the US, UK, most of Europe, and increasingly parts of Asia, the average person is consuming omega-6 fatty acids at a ratio of about 15 to 1,
15 to 1.
sometimes as high as 20 to 1 compared to omega-3s.
20 to 1. I mean, that sounds high, but numbers are abstract. What does it actually mean?
It means 20 parts of the inflammatory fuel for every 1 part of the anti-inflammatory coolant.
Wow. Okay. And to give that context, because numbers are just numbers until you compare them to something.
Right.
Where should we be? If we look at human history or biology, what's the baseline spec sheet for a human being?
Right. So if you look at anthropological data, looking at our ancestors, the hunter-gatherers whose genetics we basically inherited and are still walking around with, they were operating at a ratio of roughly 1 to 1.
1 to 1.
Maybe 4 to 1 if they had a really bad hunting season or were in a specific geographic region. But 1 to 1 was the standard operating procedure for our species for hundreds of thousands of years.
So we are operating biologically on a 1 to 1 software, but we are feeding the hardware a 20 to 1 input.
Precisely. It's a massive evolutionary mismatch. And in clinical practice, this isn't just a footnote. It's not just, oh, your ratios are off, try to do better. This imbalance is a critical lever for whole body health. It links to everything: joint inflammation, persistent fatigue, cardiovascular disease, and even things people don't expect, like depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline.
That's what we're here to untack. I'm Mike, and I'm the guy trying to figure out how to stop my own machinery from breaking down before its warranty is up.
And I'm Carol, here to dig through the biochemistry and help connect those dots so we can actually do something about it.
And our mission today is very specific. We are not just going to tell you to pop a fish oil pill and call it a day. That is the pamphlet advice.
Right, that's the waiting room advice.
That's what you get on a brochure. We are going deeper. We are going to look at the actual chemistry, why these molecules compete with each other inside your body in a game of musical chairs. We're going to look at the history of how the 20th century food system quietly broke this balance without us noticing. And of course, we are going to give you the strategy to fix it.
And the fix is interesting because it's not just about addition. It's largely about subtraction. It's about strategy, not just consumption.
I love strategy that involves doing less of the wrong thing. So let's get into section 1. We need to define the players here. The chemistry of conflict. We throw around these terms, omega-3, omega-6, like we know what they mean. But I realized I actually didn't understand what they were physically.
Most people don't. We hear fatty acid and we just think grease or, calories.
Right. So let's strip it down. These are both polyunsaturated fatty acids, or PUFAs. What does that actually mean? What does the molecule look like?
Okay, so without getting too bogged down in organic chemistry, a fatty acid is basically a long chain of carbon atoms. Think of it like a caterpillar. If the caterpillar is straight and stiff, that's a saturated fat.
Okay.
The carbons are saturated with hydrogen atoms. And because they're straight, these chains pack together really tightly. That's why butter or coconut oil is solid at room temperature. They're rigid structures.
Right, like little building blocks stacking neatly.
Exactly. Now, polyunsaturated means the chain isn't straight. It has multiple double bonds. And a double bond introduces a kink or a bend in the chain.
Ah,
So instead of a straight caterpillar, you have a curly one. This kink prevents them from packing tightly together. They're all bent and awkward. And that's why vegetable oils and fish oils are liquid at room temperature.
okay, so they are liquid. Why does my body care if my fat is liquid or solid? What's the application?
Well, because your cell membranes, the skin of every single cell in your body, are made of these fats.
The entire membrane.
A huge part of it. And the membrane needs to be fluid. It needs to be flexible so that nutrients can get in, waste can get out, and receptors can move around to catch signals from hormones.
Okay.
If your cell membrane was made entirely of rigid, saturated fat, it would be like a brick wall. Nothing would move. These PUFAs, these kinky fats, provide the fluidity. They make the cell membrane breathable, if you will.
So they are the hinges and the flexible parts of the cell wall. They let things happen.
Exactly. But here is the most important part. Both omega-3 and omega-6 are essential.
Essential is a specific medical term, right? It doesn't just mean important.
Right. In nutrition, essential means your body cannot manufacture it from scratch. We can make cholesterol, we can make saturated fat from sugar. That's what happens when you eat too many donuts.
Right.
But we cannot synthesize omega-3 or omega-6. We lack the specific enzyme to insert those double bonds in the right spots in the carbon chain. They must come from your fork. If you don't eat them, you don't have them, period.
Okay, so we have two essential fats. We need them both for our cell walls to be flexible. So why is there this war between them? Why is this a conflict?
It's the essential paradox. We need both, but they have diametrically opposing jobs inside the body. Think of them as a system of checks and balances in a government.
Okay.
Generally speaking, omega-6s are the gas pedal for inflammation, blood clotting, and cell proliferation. They start processes.
And omega-3s?
They're the brake pedal. They resolve inflammation, thin the blood, and calm the immune system down. They stop processes.
And a car needs both a gas pedal and a brake. You can't just have one.
Exactly. You can't drive a car with only brakes. You'd never go anywhere. You need inflammation to heal a wound. You need your blood to clot. But you definitely don't want to drive a car where the gas pedal is stuck to the floor 20 times harder than the brake.
That's a crash waiting to happen.
That's the modern diet. It's a crash waiting to happen at a cellular level.
That's a great way to visualize it. So let's meet the teams individually. Let's start with the peacemakers, the omega-3s. Who are the key players on this roster?
On Team Omega-3, you have three main characters. First, there is ALA, that's alpha-linolenic acid. This is the plant-based one.
This is the flaxseed, the chia seed, the walnuts, the stuff I put in my smoothie thinking I'm saving my life.
And look, those are healthy foods. Don't stop eating walnuts. They have other benefits. But ALA is a short-chain fat. It's a precursor.
A precursor to what?
It's like buying raw lumber. Your body has to do a lot of work to turn that lumber into a house. It's not the active form the body uses for the heavy lifting. We'll get to why that conversion is a huge problem later.
Yeah.
But ALA is the rookie on the team.
Okay, so if ALA is the rookie, who are the MVPs? The all-stars.
The heavy hitters are EPA and DHA. These are the marine omega-3s that come primarily from the sea.
Okay.
EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, is the anti-inflammatory powerhouse. It is found in cold water fatty fish and the algae they eat. When your body gets EPA, it converts it into molecules called resolvins and protectins.
I love those names. Resolvins. They literally resolve the issue.
They do exactly what they say on the tin. They are signaling molecules that tell the body to stop the inflammatory process and start the repair and cleanup process. They are the cleanup crew after the fire.
And DHA, what's its job?
DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, is the structural builder. It is the longest and most complex of the omega-3 chains. It is absolutely critical for the brain, the retina of your eye, and the heart.
As a physical component.
Yes. Your brain is roughly 60% fat by dry weight, and a huge chunk of that structural fat is DHA. It's the architectural steel of your nervous system. It facilitates the speed of electrical signals between neurons.
So EPA puts out the fire, DHA builds the house?
That is a perfect analogy. You need both. You need the firefighter and the construction worker.
Okay, so that's Team Peacemaker. Now let's look at the opposition. Team Omega-6, I've got in my notes here the aggressors. Is that fair, or am I being mean to a molecule?
It's fair in the context of the modern diet, yes. The captain of this team is L-linoleic acid.
And this is the one we are absolutely drowning in.
Yes. Linoleic acid is the primary fat in all those vegetable oils we see everywhere. Sunflower, corn, soybean, cottonseed, safflower oil. It is ubiquitous in the modern food supply.
And what happens when we eat it?
When you consume LA, your body converts it into another molecule called arachidonic acid.
Arachidonic acid sounds like a villain in a Spider-Man movie.
It can be a villain. Arachidonic acid resides in your cell membranes, just waiting. When there is a trigger, an injury, stress, a toxin, it is released and converted into a cascade of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids.
Okay, what are those?
These are things like prostaglandins, thromboxans, leukotrienes. They are the body's emergency signals.
What do those signals do?
They scream danger. They tell your blood vessels to constrict. They tell your platelets to become sticky and clot so you don't bleed out. They tell your immune system to send white blood cells to the area, causing swelling to trap bacteria. They increase pain sensitivity so you know something is wrong and you protect the injured area.
Which, to be fair to biology, is necessary. If I'm a hunter-gatherer and I get clawed by a tiger or I step on a sharp rock, I need my blood to clot. I need the area to swell up to fight infection. If I didn't have that, I'd die.
Exactly, 100%. If you didn't have omega-6s, you would bleed to death from a paper cut or die from a minor bacterial infection. The inflammation is a crucial survival mechanism. The problem isn't the mechanism. The problem is the signal never turning off.
Right. The tiger is gone, the wound is healed, but the body is still screaming, attack, 24/7.
Correct. Now, I do want to add one little nuance because I hate demonizing entire molecules. There's one good omega-6.
The exception to the rule. The one that plays for the other team sometimes.
Yes. It's called GLA gamma linolenic acid. It's found in things like evening primrose oil or borage oil. GLA is unique because even though it's an omega-6, it actually gets converted down a pathway that exerts mild anti-inflammatory effects.
So it's not as simple as all omega-6 is poison.
Not at all. It's really about the absolute dominance of linoleic acid from industrial seed oils. That is the specific culprit we are worried about.
Okay, so we got the players. Team 3 is trying to cool things down. Team 6 is trying to heat things up. Now, this brings us to section 2, the biological bottleneck. This was the aha moment for me in the research. Why does the ratio matter? Why can't I just eat a ton of corn oil and a ton of salmon and be fine? Why is it a zero-sum game?
This is the part that most people miss, and it's the most critical part of the biochemistry. It's the chemistry of competition.
Okay.
Omega-3 and omega-6 don't just exist in parallel lanes on a highway. They are trying to get through the same single toll booth.
The toll booth being enzymes.
Yes. To be useful, these fats have to be converted. That plant-based ALA has to become the long-chain EPA.
Yeah.
That seed oil LA has to become the pro-inflammatory arachidonic acid. The enzymes that do this work, specifically delta-6 desaturase and delta-5 desaturase, are the same for both sides.
It's musical chairs.
It is literally musical chairs. You have a limited number of enzymes, the chairs. If you flood the room with 20 omega-6 molecules for every one omega-3 molecule, which is what we do with that 20-to-1 ratio, who do you think is going to get all the chairs?
The omega-6s?
The omega-6s sit in all the chairs. They are aggressive. They physically block the omega-3s from getting processed.
They outcompete them.
They outcompete them, plain and simple. They have a higher affinity for the enzymes in some cases, and simply by sheer volume, they win. So you could be eating flax seeds and walnuts, thinking you're getting your omega-3s, but if you're also eating a diet full of soybean oil from processed foods,
Your body can't even use them.
it literally cannot convert that ALA into EPA or DHA. The factory is too busy making inflammatory compounds. The omega-3s just float by, unprocessed and largely useless.
So the result is a double whammy. You get an overproduction of the inflammatory compounds because the enzymes are busy working on the omega-6s, and a suppression of the anti-inflammatory ones because the omega-3s can't get a seat at the table.
Exactly. The chemical balance tilts aggressively toward inflammation. And that brings us back to Artemis Simopoulos. She is the researcher who really pioneered this evolutionary mismatch theory.
Simopoulos standard.
Right. She was one of the first to really point out that our genes, our entire biology, is adapted to that one-to-one ancestral environment. Our enzymes are tuned for balance. When we force a 20-to-1 ratio on that ancient machinery, we create a biological state that our DNA simply doesn't know how to handle.
So her argument is that this mismatch is the root cause.
She argues that this specific mismatch is a primary driver behind the modern epidemic of chronic inflammatory disease. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autoimmunity, all of it.
It's like putting diesel fuel in a gasoline engine. It might run for a mile, but it's going to smoke, it's going to knock, and eventually the engine block is going to crack.
That's a great analogy. And in the human body, that smoke is inflammation.
Let's talk about the smoke. Section 3, Inflammation, the silent fire. We touched on this, but I want to distinguish between the good kind and the bad kind, because if I sprain my ankle, I want it to swell, that stabilizes the joint, that brings healing factors.
Yes, that is acute inflammation. It is hot, red, painful, and short-lived. It's a targeted response. It creates a localized environment to kill pathogens and clear out dead tissue. Once the job is done, the resolvins and protectins made from omega-3s kick in, the inflammation subsides, and you are healed. The fire department comes, puts out the fire, and goes home.
But that's not what we're talking about with this ratio imbalance.
No. The problem we are facing today is chronic low-grade inflammation.
The simmering pot.
It's systemic. It's not in your ankle. It's everywhere. It's in your blood vessels. It's in your adipose tissue, which is your body fat. It's in your gut. It's in your brain. It simmers quietly for years or decades, never getting hot enough to cause acute symptoms, but constantly doing damage.
So it's damaging the lining of your arteries, leading to plaque buildup. It's disrupting insulin signaling, leading to diabetes. It's like a low-level static noise that prevents the body's systems from communicating clearly.
That's a perfect description.
Yeah.
And because it's low grade, you don't feel it directly. You don't wake up and say, ouch, my pancreas is inflamed today.
Right.
You just feel off.
Yeah.
Or you feel nothing at all until you have a heart attack at 55.
The list of conditions linked to this is staggering. I mean, when you look at it, it's basically the who's who of modern misery.
It is. We're talking cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis,
Right.
the hardening of the arteries. This is the big one, the #1 killer. We're talking type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome.
The obvious ones.
Those are the ones people kind of expect,
Mhm.
but then you look at Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline.
The brain inflammation connection, that one scares me the most.
As it should. The brain is highly susceptible to oxidative stress and inflammation. It consumes a huge amounts of oxygen, and as we said, is made of fat. If that fat is the wrong kind and it's constantly inflamed, you get damage. You get plaque buildup in the brain, just like in the arteries of the heart.
And autoimmune conditions.
Yes, things like rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's and colitis, even Hashimoto's thyroiditis. The immune system is hyperactive, fueled by that arachidonic acid, and it gets confused and starts attacking the body's own tissues.
And the one that really surprised me was mood disorders, depression and anxiety. We tend to think of depression as purely a neurotransmitter issue. Oh, I don't have enough serotonin. But the research suggests it's also an inflammatory issue.
Absolutely. There is a deeply established link between neuroinflammation in the brain and depression. When the brain is inflamed, it changes how it processes emotion, reward, and stress.
How does that work?
There are studies where if you inject pro-inflammatory cytokines, which are these inflammatory messenger molecules, into a healthy person, they will almost immediately start displaying the classic symptoms of depression withdrawal, fatigue, lack of pleasure, social anxiety.
That is wild. You can induce depression just by spiking inflammation.
You can. It's a sickness behavior. When you are sick with the flu, your body makes you feel tired and antisocial because it wants you to stay in bed and conserve energy to fight the infection. Depression seems to hijack that same ancient mechanism. The brain thinks it's sick because it's inflamed.
So for the listener right now who might be thinking, okay, this sounds serious, but do I have this imbalance? I don't have heart disease yet. What does the clinical picture look like day to day? Is there a checklist of signs?
While you can't know for sure without a blood test, which we will talk about, there are definitely common signs. The most common one is chronic joint pain or stiffness, especially in the morning when there's no obvious injury.
The why do my knees hurt feeling when you're only 35? That I feel like I'm 80 when I get out of bed feeling.
Exactly. It's that generalized stiffness. Skin issues are another huge red flag. Eczema, dryness, psoriasis flares, poor wound healing. Your skin relies heavily on fatty acids to maintain its moisture barrier. If the ratio is off, the barrier is compromised. You get dry, flaky, irritated skin.
What about the brain fog aspect? Is that real?
Huge. Trouble concentrating, that feeling of walking into a room and forgetting why you're there, anxiety that feels physical like a jitteriness or a constant sense of unease, low mood that doesn't seem to respond to lifestyle changes.
And eyes. I saw eye dryness in the notes.
Yes, remember DHA is heavily concentrated in the retina. If you are deficient in omega-3s, your tear film quality suffers. If you have constantly dry, gritty eyes, it might not just be your contact lenses or looking at a screen all day. It might be your lunch.
And what about sleep? How does it affect sleep?
Poor sleep quality. Omega-3s actually modulate the serotonin and melatonin pathways. If you're tired but wired, or you wake up frequently, or you just wake up feeling unrefreshed and inflamed, check your oils.
Now, we do need to drop a serious medical alert here because we are responsible hosts. This is really important.
Yes, please. Listen, dietary changes are for long-term health and prevention. We are talking about remodeling your cell membranes over months. If you're experiencing sudden chest pain, palpitations, shortness of breath, signs of a stroke-like facial drooping or arm weakness, severe abdominal pain,
You go to the ER.
you go to the ER. You do not eat a salad. You do
Oh.
not take a fish oil pill.
Right, don't try to omega-3 your way out of a heart attack in progress. That is not the takeaway here.
Precisely. This is about changing the architecture of your health so you don't end up there in the first place.
Okay, so we know the chemistry, we know the consequences, but the question is, how did we get here? This brings us to section 4, how we broke the balance. Because 150 years ago, nobody was talking about omega-6 ratios. They didn't know what a fatty acid was, but they were generally metabolically healthy.
No, because 150 years ago, we simply didn't have the technology to extract these oils, nor the distribution to put them in everything. This is really the story of the vegetable oil revolution.
It sounds like a boring revolution, but it fundamentally changed human biology.
It absolutely did. Up until the early 1900s, humans cooked with traditional fats, mostly animal fats, butter, lard, tallow, and fruit oils like olive oil or coconut oil.
Things you can get with simple technology.
Right. These are fats you can get relatively easily. You churn cream, you get butter, you
Yeah.
render fat, you get tallow, you press an olive, you get oil.
But you can't just squeeze a corn kernel and get oil.
No. Try squeezing a soybean, nothing happens. To get oil out of seeds like corn, soy, cotton, or sunflower, you need industrial processing. You need very high heat, high pressure, and usually chemical solvents like hexane.
Hexane is a petroleum byproduct, isn't it?
It is. It's an industrial solvent, so it's a chemistry experiment just to get the oil out. You extract it, and you have to degum it, bleach it, and deodorize it because the extraction process makes it smell terrible and go rancid quickly.
And in the 20th century, we figured out how to do this cheaply.
Very cheaply. And suddenly, these oils were everywhere. We were told they were heart healthy because they lowered cholesterol, which is a whole other debate. But the result was a massive, unprecedented shift in the human diet.
And the scale of this change is just bonkers.
The statistics show that per capita consumption of soybean oil alone in the U.S. skyrocketed by over 1,000% in the 20th century.
1,000%.
Overall vegetable oil consumption rose by over 300%. That is a radical change in the human diet in a very short evolutionary window. We essentially replaced stable traditional fats with unstable inflammatory seed oils.
And these oils are just pure omega-6 bombs.
They are extraordinarily high in linoleic acid. Soybean oil is over 50% linoleic acid. Sunflower oil and corn oil can be up to 70%. And because they are cheap and shelf-stable, the food industry loves them. They lower the cost of goods sold and increase profit margins.
Which brings us to the ultra-processed trap, because I think people listening might say, well, I don't cook with corn oil, I use olive oil at home.
And that's great. But are you eating processed food? Because in Western countries, up to 60% of our caloric intake comes from ultra-processed foods.
This is the stuff in the middle of the grocery store, the boxes, the bags, the frozen meals.
It's the crackers, cookies, chips, store-bought bread, salad dressings, mayonnaise, frozen pizzas, even things that look healthy. Go pick up a bag of veggie chips or roasted nuts. Turn it over. The second ingredient is almost always sunflower, safflower, or canola oil.
So even if you aren't pouring oil on your food, you're eating it. It's the stealth ingredient.
You are marinating in it. And restaurant food is even worse. Almost all restaurants, from fast food to fine dining, cook in these cheap seed oils because they have a high smoke point and they cost pennies compared to butter or olive oil. If you eat out regularly, you are getting an omega-6 megadose.
And then there's the farming factor. This is the part that makes me a little sad, honestly. Even our natural food isn't what it used to be.
It's not. We have to look at what the animals are eating. Cows, for example. Cows are ruminants. They are designed to eat grass. When a cow eats grass, the meat and dairy it produces has a pretty decent omega-3 profile.
But we don't feed them grass anymore for the most part.
In industrial farming, in CFO's concentrated animal feeding operations, we feed them grains, mostly corn and soy.
Which are high in omega-6.
Exactly. So the cow eats the omega-6, and that fat composition gets incorporated into the tissues of the animal. We literally change the biology of the cow to match our industrial food system.
So a steak isn't just a steak. The nutritional profile can be completely different.
Not chemically, no. The data is striking here. A study in the Nutrition Journal found that grass-fed beef can approach a healthy 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. But grain-fed beef, the standard stuff in the grocery store,
What's that at?
that's often 10 to 1, sometimes higher.
So even if you're trying to do the right thing, you're avoiding the cookies, you're eating whole foods like beef and eggs, if you're buying conventional meat and eggs, you're still getting hit with that imbalance.
You are fighting an uphill battle, yes. The chickens are eating soy, so the eggs are high in omega-6. The salmon is farmed and fed soy pellets, so the salmon is lower in omega-3 than its wild counterpart. The entire system is pervasive.
Okay, that's the doom and gloom. We've identified the problem. We've identified the history. We know the enemy is the imbalance. Now, let's fix it. Section 5, the turnaround strategy.
Let's get to the good stuff. How do we reclaim our biology?
We have a three-pronged attack here. Strategy 1, increase omega-3s. This is the offensive move. We need to flood the zone with the peacemakers.
This is where you actively add the high-quality omega-3s to your diet. And remember the conversion problem. You need to prioritize marine sources. You want the preformed EPA and DHA, the stuff that's ready to work.
Give me the shopping list. What are we putting in the cart?
The superstars are the fatty cold-water fish. Wild-caught salmon is the classic gold standard. Sockeye, coho, king salmon. They eat the krill and algae in the wild, which concentrates the omega-3s.
But salmon is expensive, and there are concerns about sustainability.
Both true. So don't sleep on the smaller fish. Mackerel, sardines, anchovies, herring.
I feel like sardines are having a moment right now. I see them everywhere.
They should be. We call them the S-8H fish salmon. Mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring. The smaller fish are lower on the food chain, which means they have less accumulated mercury and other toxins, and they are packed with EPA and DHA. Plus, they are sustainable and cheap. You can get a tin of high-quality sardines for $2 or $3 that is a superfood for the price of a candy bar.
What if I'm not a fish person? I just can't do the taste. What about shellfish?
Oysters and mussels are surprisingly high in omega-3s. They are fantastic sources and also packed with zinc and other minerals. So yes, absolutely.
And for the vegetarians and vegans listening, because they can't eat salmon, this is a big challenge for them.
This is important. You can go straight to the source. Where do the fish get their omega-3s? They don't make it either.
They eat the algae.
They eat the algae. So you cut out the middle fish, you can get algae oil supplements, which are a fantastic source of both EPA and DHA, or you can eat seaweed salads, nori, dulse, spirulina. These contain the actual active forms, not just the precursor ALA.
Now, we need to address the flaxseed myth again, because I know people who say, oh, I put chia seeds in my smoothie, I'm good on omega-3s.
I hear this all the time. I don't need fish. I eat walnuts. Look, flax, chia and walnuts are healthy foods. They have fiber, they have nutrients, but remember the enzyme bottleneck. They contain ALA. The conversion rate from ALA to the active EPA and DHA is incredibly inefficient for most people.
How inefficient?
Nearly less than 10%. In men, it can be as low as 1% or even 0%.
So you cannot rely solely on seeds to fix a 20-to-1 imbalance. It's just not going to happen.
No. It's mathematically almost impossible. You would need to eat cups of flax oil to get the same active effect as a single piece of salmon, and even then, with all the omega-6 in your diet, the enzymes might not be able to handle it. You need the preformed sources to really move the needle.
Okay, strategy 2. And you've argued in the past that this might be even more important than eating the fish. The defensive move. Reduce omega-6 overload.
Think about it. If you have a boat that is taking on water, what's the first thing you do? Do you start bailing with a bucket, which is adding omega-3s, or do you plug the hole, which is stopping the flood of omega-6s?
You plug the hole, otherwise you're just bailing forever and you'll still sink.
Exactly. You have to stop the flood. If you are eating a 20-to-1 diet, adding a fish oil pill is like throwing a cup of water on a forest fire. You have to cut the fuel source.
So what is the no-go list? What are we evicting from the pantry?
The industrial seed oils,
Yep.
soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil. And canola is a bit of a gray area, but generally, I say minimize it.
So read labels.
Read every label.
Oh.
Check your salad dressings. Check your mayonnaise. Check your peanut butter. Does it have added soybean oil? Check your crackers, your chips, your granola bars. It's hidden everywhere.
And these are tricky because they sound healthy. Sunflower sounds nice. It's a flower. Grapeseed sounds fancy.
They sound lovely, and the marketing has done a brilliant job. But remember the extraction process. Remember the oxidation. Remember the omega-6 content. They are pro-inflammatory when consumed in the high doses that are typical today.
So what do we swap them for? What do I cook my eggs in on Saturday morning?
You want stable, low POFA fats. Extra virgin olive oil, or EVOO, is the king for low to medium heat cooking and dressings. It's mostly monounsaturated fat, which is neutral to beneficial. Avocado oil is great for higher heat cooking because it has a high smoke point.
And animal fats, are they back on the table?
Absolutely. Grass-fed butter or ghee. Unrefined coconut oil is also good because it's saturated and very stable under heat. Even tallow or lard from pasture-raised animals.
I want to double click on EVOO because there's a bonus feature there, right? It's not just a replacement.
Yes, EVO isn't just a neutral replacement. A good quality one contains a compound called oleocanthal.
Oleocamp.
It's a natural phenolic compound that has anti-inflammatory properties that mimic a low dose of ibuprofen. It's a specific inhibitor of the COX enzymes, the same enzymes that cause pain and inflammation. So when you use high-quality olive oil, you are literally dosing yourself with nature's anti-inflammatory.
How can you tell if your olive oil has it?
It has a peppery sting in the back of your throat. If your olive oil is smooth and buttery with no kick, it's likely low in polyphenols. That peppery kick, that's the medicine working.
That is incredible. So you're removing the pro-inflammatory corn oil and replacing it with anti-inflammatory olive oil. That's a double win.
It's a massive swing in the right direction. It's the single most impactful change most people can make to their diet.
Strategy 3. Upgrade animal products. We touched on this, but this is the conscious shift to pasture-raised.
Right. If you eat meat, eat better meat. Look for labels that say 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef.
Why grass-finished? That's an important distinction.
Because a lot of cows are grass-fed for the first part of their life and then sent to a feedlot for the last 3 months to fatten it up on corn and soy. That destroys the omega ratio right at the end. You want them eating grass their whole life.
And eggs. What's the best label?
Pasture-raised is the label you want, not cage-free, not free-range. Those terms are legally vague and often just mean the chicken has a small door to a dirt patch it never uses. Pasture-raised usually means the chickens are actually outside in a field, eating bugs, eating greens, living like chickens. Their eggs have deep orange yolks and a completely different fatty acid profile.
So they have more omega-3 and less omega-6.
Significantly more. It's quality over quantity. Maybe you eat slightly less meat because it's more expensive, but the meat you do eat is medicine, not just a source of inflammation.
Treat meat as a nutrient source, not just filler.
Exactly.
Okay, section 6. Let's talk about the nitty-gritty of supplementation, testing, and lifestyle. Because sometimes diet isn't enough or people want to accelerate the process.
Supplementation is clinically justified for a lot of people. If you have a diagnosed inflammatory condition, known heart risks, cognitive concerns, or if you just really truly hate fish, supplements bridge that gap effectively.
Is there actual hard data on this? Because sometimes supplements feel like, just expensive urine.
There is very strong data, especially for cardiovascular health. There's a comprehensive 2020 meta-analysis published in JAMA Cardiology. They looked at high-dose EPA supplementation, about 4 grams a day in high-risk patients. They found it reduced major cardiovascular events by 25%.
A 25% reduction is huge in the medical world. Usually they get excited about a 5% risk reduction from a drug.
It's massive. Now, that was a prescription dose for high-risk people. For general prevention and well-being, you don't necessarily need 4 grams. The standard recommendation is usually around 1 to 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day.
What should we look for on the bottle? Because the supplement aisle is the Wild West. It's confusing.
It really is. First, look for the triglyceride form. Fish oil naturally occurs as triglycerides, but some cheap processing converts it into ethyl esters. The triglyceride form is much better absorbed by the body.
Okay, what else?
Second, third-party testing. Fish oil is an oil. It can go rancid. You know that fishy bulk you get from cheap pills?
The worst. It ruins the whole day.
That's often because the oil is already oxidized. It's spoiled. You're eating rotten oil, which is pro-inflammatory. You want a brand that certifies purity and freshness, like an IFS certification, and it should be stored in a dark, opaque bottle to protect it from light.
And a quick caution, you mentioned blood thinners before.
Yes, if you are on blood thinners like warfarin or Coumadin, you must consult your doctor. Omega-3s have a mild anticoagulant effect. That's part of why they're good for heart health. But you don't want to overdo it if you're already on medication that does the same thing.
Now, how do we know if any of this is working? You mentioned a blood test. Can we measure this?
Yes, it's called the Omega-3 Index.
It sounds like a sci-fi movie. The Omega-3 Index.
It's a very simple blood test. You can even do it at home with a finger prick kit. It measures the amount of EPA and DHA specifically in your red blood cell membranes.
Why red blood cells? Why not just the plasma in the blood?
Plasma levels change based on what you ate yesterday. If you had salmon last night, your plasma levels spike. It's a snapshot. Red blood cells live for about 120 days. So measuring the RBC membrane gives you a long-term average like the HbA1c test for diabetes. It tells you what your status has been for the last 3-4 months. It's the truth serum.
What's the score we are shooting for? What's a good number?
The target zone, the cardioprotective zone, is above 8%.
And where is the average American?
Most people on a standard Western diet are below 4%. And being below 4% is considered a high risk factor for sudden cardiac death.
So you want to double your number, at least. You want to be an 8, not a 4.
Or higher. The Japanese population, who eat a lot of fish, often test in the 8 to 11% range, and they have much lower rates of heart disease than we do.
How long does it take to move the needle? If I start eating sardines and chugging olive oil today, when do I see the 8%?
It takes time, because you have to wait for the red blood cells to turn over and incorporate the new fats. So it takes 3 to 6 months to significantly change the index. However, patients often report feeling better, less joint pain, better mood, clearer thinking in about 8 to 12 weeks.
So stick with it. It's not an overnight fix. You're rebuilding your body.
Consistency is key. You are literally rebuilding your cellular architecture, cell by cell.
Finally, let's talk about holistic support, because you can't just take a fish oil pill and then stay up all night drinking vodka and expect to be healthy.
Sadly, no. The diet doesn't work in isolation. You have to support the machinery.
What helps the ratio work? What are the lifestyle factors?
Exercise is huge. It upregulates the body's own internal anti-inflammatory pathways. Stress management, because chronic stress releases cortisol, and cortisol is a major driver of inflammation. Sleep is non-negotiable. Sleep deprivation increases systemic inflammation instantly. And unfortunately, alcohol.
What does alcohol do to the enzymes?
Remember our musical chairs, enzymes, delta-6 and delta-5 desaturases. Alcohol directly impairs their function. It makes it even harder for your body to convert and use these fatty acids properly. It basically creates a bottleneck at the liver. So minimizing alcohol is a big part of restoring balance.
It all connects. It's a web. You can't pull one string without affecting all the others.
It's a system. You can't hack one part and ignore the rest.
So let's bring this home. What is the big takeaway here? If someone only remembers one thing from this whole deep dive, what should it be?
For me, the summary is that this isn't about good fat versus bad fat in a moral sense. It's about balance. It's about restoring a ratio that sustained human life for hundreds of thousands of years. We broke it in the last century with industrial food, and our bodies are paying the price for that mistake.
And the hopeful message is that biology isn't destiny. You aren't stuck with the cells you have today.
No, you replace your cells constantly. You can shift this ratio within months just by swapping your cooking oils and prioritizing quality proteins. You have the power to change the chemistry of your own blood. That is profound agency over your own health.
That is empowering. Now, I want you to leave us with a final thought, something to chew on.
You know, we live in an age where we are constantly looking for the next big medical breakthrough. We want a pill, a surgery, a CRISPR edit, a new biohack.
The magic bullet.
The magic bullet. But I think about this. What if the most powerful intervention available to us isn't something new and futuristic? What if it's just returning to the chemical balance our DNA was designed for? We are trying to run a Paleolithic body in a modern inflammatory world. The breakthrough might just be looking backward to move forward.
That's deep. The answers are in the code we already have. We just have to give it the right inputs.
Exactly. We have to honor the blueprint.
I love that. Well, listener, if you want to keep diving deep into the science of your own biology and uncover more of these invisible levers of health, make sure to hit that subscribe button on the channel. We got a lot more deep dives coming your way.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.